This
All
time
right,
on the
everyone.
Rovertime podcast, we have a pretty full crew,
Yep.
and we're all required to speak in NPR tones.
Yes, we are. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, and I can't wait to get started.
Let's try my short balls.
The first step of
SNL reference.
All right, I don't know where we're going from here, Mark.
the first
don't
step
know
of
either.
adulting is one, learning to acquire a taste for freeform jazz and speaking in soft tones.
I'll play some jazz if you want. I love jazz.
Oh no, jazz is cancer. As I've gotten older, I've found myself appreciating things like, furniture decorating, the amount of things I can write off for my taxes. But jazz is not one of those things. I don't think I'm ever going to be there.
But
Tax exemption.
Roman, the real question is, how do you feel about Nirvana?
I always like Nirvana, though. They're good.
Wow.
Yeah, fuck you, Terry.
That's not an adult thing. That's just like I like grunge rock and was meant to be born earlier, so I could have been a teenager in the 90s sort of thing.
I'm hugging you in spirit. You just
Thank you.
I know it's not an adult thing. I just wanted to throw something in Terry's face a little bit.
Well, the reason for this extra
Uncultured
is
swines.
most of us here are like around college or post-college age, and we just figured it'd be fun to talk about what it's like growing up and, things to think about going forward and whatever, or what we're dealing with right now. So, yeah, whatever you guys want to talk about first. It's just a kind of, no strict plan for the episode.
Only thing I can think of to contribute right off the bat is I'm learning, hey, it doesn't hurt to pay just a little bit extra on certain things. I'm trying to take after what my dad has taught me is hey, if you have just an extra couple bucks for a car payment or something like that, spend it. It will help so much. You don't even know. Because I'm okay, 1 year into having my own car, and I'm all right, I need to add it up. I know that I've probably, chiseled off quite a bit. So I'm happy about it's interesting to see that one unfold, I guess. So
I completely know what you mean. When I was in college, I was limited to working 20 hours a week because I had a special student visa. So you can't work full time. So money was pretty tight. So I was always going for literally the cheapest option. If it were a dollar cheaper, I would still get the cheaper option, even if it was 50 times worse. Because in my mind, that was a really trade-off. But now that I'm a little bit older, definitely, I'm in a better place financially. I'm no, the quality, you can't put a price on quality.
Unit price is your friend. Unit prices, making sure it's okay, yeah, this is cheaper in this small size, but I think I could reasonably use this size. And, but like you said, too, the quality, it's okay, you think about how much of that cheap food you bought, how much did you eat and be or you take a bite, you're oh God, and you ended up just throwing it out because it was the most repulsive thing you'd ever had in your life.
Well, actually, another thing, I don't know, how you guys are. You're guys, so I don't know if this would apply to you, but I've noticed that since I've gotten older.
Are you assuming our gender, roaming?
I'm sorry, you're right. Insensitive of me. But I've noticed the food that I eat is different. I was looking at my groceries the other day and I was oh gosh, everything's organic, some kale, the most basic groceries. I have quinoa, and I'm what's happened to me? There's no fruit roll up anywhere, and I'm choosing.
Well, when you when you have a little, when you have the option, like you said, you've got some more financial stability where you're okay, I can, reasonably choose something that I want while still being a little bit cost efficient versus, okay, what is the cheapest way I can survive for the next 48 hours? It really becomes a lot differently because it's okay, I can buy a case of, Walmart brand, whatever. Well, if you don't have to do that, you know what? You're not going to do that. So, that's an understandable upgrade, and Doctor, also to one of your points about paying a little extra, I ended up, because I did that when I had my car, I ended up just by throwing, whatever I don't even remember what the payment was, but by paying say it was $200 payment, saying I paid
right, yeah,
$225 every month.
Yeah, totally.
I ended up because of the amount of money I ended up saving on the interest, I ended up paying it off a year sooner.
Wow.
Because of how much extra and it wasn't anything that broke me. It was just, okay, I'm going to pay this much extra. And then I end up getting a thing from the bank, like a refund check saying, hey, you've overpaid. Oh, and by the way, here's your title.
It's like paying it forward, but for yourself.
It was like, oh, well, okay, thank you. Shit, that was fantastic.
I'm trying to think. Actually, no, somebody else go. I already said my.
I was going to say, Mark, this was your party.
What did you learn, dude?
No, I grew up never trusting anything on the internet because
that's a good instinct.
We don't. I never ever like clicked on an ad. All the pop-ups are scams. Emails I don't know are scams. I never paid. I grew up I never paid for things online really. So like, I'm barely introduced to paying for things online. But like now that I do it, it's like, wow, it's cool. I can click something here, and in a couple of days it shows up at my house. Like I know it happens all the time, but like I never grew up doing it. But so that's interesting. And I also just paid for Hulu because I'm like, I can afford, what is it now, like $6 a month?
Yeah,
like that.
That's, I think, a huge sign of adulthood when you have your own Netflix account, your own cell phone bill and stuff. That's where it's like, okay, guys, your own Amazon Prime.
I can tell you, being
you're a real adult when you're in my situation.
For 25 years now, adulthood is highly, for the most part, overrated.
Yeah,
I like the independence though.
I do. I mean, well, okay. I can't stand being in a room with my family for 2 hours. So living with them, that's never gonna, like, literally, like, I have used my dog as an excuse to leave more family gatherings than I should probably admit. Like, oh crap, because we met so early, I didn't feed the dog, and he's probably gonna go out and blah blah blah. So I'll see you guys later.
Dan, I feel like you and your girlfriend would get along really well after you saying that, because
I literally, I'm on the way to family gatherings planning my out. Like on the way there, I am planning. Okay, I'm getting there early, so I've got that working in my favor, and then I can do this and I can say that. And yeah, I mean, it's I agree. The independence is it's something I could never go back to, but of course, Mark, you say about paying things online, aging myself, we didn't have that option when I was your age. The online was not in existence. Everything was, checking accounts, where they actually wrote checks. That thing you see those old ladies that hold you up in line at the grocery store where you want to kick them because they're
Is that made out of that thing I've heard of called Papper?
Wait, who doesn't have a checking account though?
Well, you have a checking account. Most people use like they're, most banks give you a debit card for it.
Yeah.
Yes, they'll give you some paper checks, but who uses, I use a paper check to pay for my rent. That's it.
Want to hear a funny story? So I was so excited when I got my first checkbook, and this was when I moved out for university, and I was so excited about having checks, being able to write checks, that I was paying my rent with checks every month. Because I could have paid other ways, but I thought checks were more fun. Fast forward a year where I actually need a check for something else. I forget what it was. And I had run out, so I had to go order checks. And it turns out checks are extremely expensive.
Very expensive.
Very, very expensive. It was like $50.
Suddenly they're less fun.
For the checks. Yeah, suddenly less fun. Suddenly
less
super
fun.
regret.
Fuck!
Kind of using them needlessly.
Well,
I had a friend that he's not as much of an adult yet, and I gave him a check for his birthday once, and it was only $25, and for a year he never cashed it, and then it went bad. So I kept trying to balance my checkbook, and then every month it was like, oh, why am I $25 not matching up?
Why do you use checks in the digital age? It makes no sense.
I didn't have cash on me. But
and you can't hand them out.
But what's really new with me is I actually got my first credit card, and I grew up completely against credit cards. I was always told never get one, but because I'm paying off my student loans so quickly because I got a new job and I'm budgeting my money, and I still live at home, I'm paying my student loans off so quickly that I'm going to stop building credit. So I figured, I might as well. Everyone keeps telling me I got to get one, so I got a Discover card. And
I really hate the way our society is set up, because regardless of whether you need a credit card, you actually kind of need one to build credit, because if you want to do something that's like buy a house later for a mortgage, apply for an auto loan, like you need to have that already pre-established line of credit, because they're not just gonna give it to you if you've never had anything.
Well, here's a good tip: you build a lot more credit if you open up a cell phone account than you do with a credit card account. Because I bought my house before I owned a credit card, before I had a credit card. And it was because I had been building credit from my cell phone that I'd had for a year or two beforehand.
Oh, yeah. I've never been on a cell phone plan like that. I've always just done like that. What is that? T-Mobile. You just pay the $30 per month. Yeah, the prepay.
Yeah, you got to go with a postpaid plan, because then it's on your credit.
Roman, when you were mentioning about the checks, when I was in the at that time where we're writing check, before the digital age of writing checks was how you did do it. The way you could get more checks is I would open a new bank account at another bank and 53 checks. So I would just go in, and most of the time they'd be like, "Yeah, if you could bring it, here's $20." I'd be like, I'd open it, and then I would just gradually transfer all my money from the one bank to the other. And I'm like, okay, cool. I got 50 more.
How many times can you do that trick exactly?
Well, but you got to remember, though, this is really, this is before computers. So the banks really couldn't, it's not like they could see.
But at some point, the people at different banks have to be wisening up, right?
No, so here's the.
Really?
Yeah, here's the.
You think they're gonna remember some random guys going, "Hey, yo, that guy, he came here 6 months ago."
Yeah,
hey, I remember some weird shit. I gotta give people some credit sometimes.
No, not in the,
you like that? Credit to the bank.
You think about how many times you go into one business regularly, and how often do the people even recognize you? If you go in once a month, so it's like, you could do that. Especially there's like 4 or 5 banks in your area.
Well,
I didn't pay for checks for years.
What's really exciting to me is that like I upgraded my a bank account, which was exciting, and I'm at one where it's $30 a month unless you have over a certain amount, and it's not a lot. It's like either one or two or something like that. But with it, I get unlimited free checks and bank drafts.
Oh.
There is nothing exciting about this conversation, by the way. Just for us to step back for a second. Nothing exciting about this. But yeah, by the way, now they really fuck you. I opened a business account, by the way, for a new appraisal shop that I'm breaking off to, and they literally only give you like 2 printed sheets of checks, so 3 each. I got 6 checks for opening, and I'm like, you can't. It's a credit union, so obviously like they're cutting costs. And I asked them, and they're like, we can give you a free box of checks, like we don't mind, but we make people ask for it. They're like, do you really need checks? I'm like, no, actually, I only need one. Because I just have to send a voided check to everyone who sends me money, because it's direct deposit with every other business.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, that's what we figured out too.
But with my bank, it's pretty great. Like they've kind of caught on. You can actually just print out direct deposit forms from your online banking, which is super handy. So you don't actually need to like use checks for that.
Yeah, that's the direct payment stuff that makes checks.
This is so riveting.
It's literally the episode about adulting. Everything on this episode is going to be
you want to talk about adulting? There's nothing riveting about adulting. Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know about you guys, but I am titillated.
I don't know if you guys are underestimating how exciting automatic deposit is. It's so much better.
No, it's great.
Oh, direct deposit. I don't understand anyone that.
I tell you what.
For my work, you have the option to have a check mailed to you. I'm like,
why?
What year was this, and why would anybody ever do that? I don't understand that.
It takes longer. It could get lost depending on the amount. It might take a few days to clear. Like it's just worse in literally every way.
And it's
actually, I'll tell you what. Secret is a lot of businesses will send out the checks a couple days before your actual payday. So sometimes you get paid early.
Yeah, but generally those checks are dated for your payday. So you may have the check earlier, but then I'd have to go to the bank. It's like, why? I could just
I'll just use a smartphone direct deposit. Just do
that.
That way you can put the money in the bank and you have the check.
The other day so triggered. Okay, so I have to go to the bank fairly often.
Shit, the T word.
And I needed a bank draft, one of my free included bank drafts. But anyway, I needed a teller. So I'm waiting in line, and it's like it's during the day, which is weird. It's like 2 p.m., but there's like 10 people in front of me. And one of the people who work at the bank, she's going through the line asking people if what they need help with and if they wouldn't mind her showing them how to do it with the online banking. So they're trying to get people to use online banking to kind of free up the teller services for people who actually need it.
Naturally.
5 people in front of me. One of them, like all of them could have used online banking to do what they wanted to do. You know, they wanted to make transfers between accounts, blah, blah, blah. All of them could have used online banking. They all refused to learn how to do it with online banking for some reason. And it's like...
Because we don't trust the interbots.
Yes, and it's like, I need a teller. I don't have the freedom. I would love to not be here.
Were they older people? Like, I'm talking like senior citizen older people?
They were all above 40, and they were, I would say, not native to the area.
Oh, well, that's part of it. But the other thing is, and I used to experience this when I worked at working in retail, sometimes old people will do it just because they want someone to talk to.
Yeah.
It's they'll go to the teller, and it's just, they just want, but if they're not native and
I think my grandma does that, because I swear she goes to the bank like every other day, and I have to take her because she can't drive, and it's like I there's no way you have this many banking needs with the fact that you don't pay any bills. So it's very.
Come talk to Grandma Romy.
Yeah, does she have internet?
She does.
There's actually, I can't remember the name of the website, but there's actually a website that seniors go on to where they just talk to people from around the world. So people can.
That would be nice.
Yeah, you can look it up. I can't remember exactly. I learned about it on John Stossel's show, but basically, it's a good for both ways because people can learn English from the elderly, and then the elderly has someone to talk to. So.
John Stossel. That's another thing. I feel like just getting into politics in general is an adult thing.
So if you guys want real God mode with keeping track of your money, you use Quicken and use Quicken's bill pay service. All of it in one convenient location. You never have to get on online banking or any of that.
My bank has an app.
You just click a button on your computer, and
my bank has an app.
Yeah, but can you pay bills from that app?
Yes,
I can.
Yeah, literally every bank in the universe has a bill pay.
Online pay.
So here's the thing. I would highly advise people to be very careful about using Quicken and their services because as a entity, they are kind of getting cut up and selling off a lot of their products.
Intuit actually just sold off Quicken. Quicken is owned by an investment firm now.
Yeah, so they're going to be cutting it down a little bit further. That's the word on the street. Like, they've stopped sending out work through their equity line to all their normal sources. So yes, that's always when I'm like, that bank might be going out of business, and I'm going to stop taking work from them. And usually when I do that, I tell people just be careful. You have FDIC insurance for a reason, so you're not going to lose any money unless you have over the whatever insane limit that people that are super adulting would know, and I don't because I'm never going to be that high.
It's about 250 grand.
Yeah, so unless you're above that in an account, you don't really have to worry about losing your money on it because they're not going to dissolve anything. And it's not a structured deal, but
yeah, I mean that shows you how much it went up because it used to be.
Okay, chat. Matt Wright is asking if we can talk about something else.
I applied for my passport.
Oh, that's exciting.
That is adulting.
Oh my god, that is so riveting.
Dan, do you already have yours for
No,
your trip,
I'm actually getting mine now because I told him I'm going to. And this is how much the world's changed because I've been to Montreal a few times in the past, so you could just drive across, but now you need a passport even to go to Canada. So
thanks 9/11.
Yeah, for anyone that missed it, that's my passport.
But that also tells you how long it's been since I've been, and I'm literally the neighbor of Canada, and
that was only 10 years ago, dude. They only changed that 10 years ago.
Well,
I remember you used to be able to go just with a license. I think my parents said.
Yeah, so there's in 2003 they passed the law changing it, and then everyone lost their shit because they're like, whoa.
And and most of the time, if you're going into Canada, they were extra polite. They'd be like, "Just go ahead, that's fine."
Even so I was living in San Diego when they made the switch, and we would go into Tijuana and Rosarito like every other month or so. And like for the first year, even after the actual change, like they had done warnings the whole way through, big signs as you're entering Mexico, you need a passport for re-entry, no matter who you are, etc. Right?
Oh my
The first
God.
year, they were still like waving people through and being like, "This is your last warning. Like next time, we're literally going to make you go to the embassy office and get paperwork for temporary entry."
Honestly,
And
you know what's really strange? I don't know if you all noticed, but according to Congress, reasonable jurisdiction for border patrol is anywhere 100 miles from the physical border of the country. So
yes, because we have a big border.
it's insane. That means the entire state of Florida is within border patrol jurisdiction, and most of California, most of Texas.
That's a coast.
He means inland. That's still the.
So I said the entire state. They can set up checkpoints anywhere, and 2/3 of the country's population lives.
They can hold on. They can set up checkpoints anywhere with state permission. Let's be really clear about that.
And also, why would you? It's Florida. It's on peninsula.
It's Australia.
There's nobody
but
there.
No one's fucking with it.
Australia of America.
It just goes to show how stupid border patrol.
All the weird shit happens in Florida, Stan.
It
Well,
does.
yeah, I
It really
know.
does.
That's not true, actually. No, that's not true. Because the thing is that in Florida, they actually have a state law that says whenever the press asks the police for anything, they have to give up the information. So it looks like Florida's weird, but the thing is that it's the only state in the country that has that law. So you just hear about all the stuff that happens in Florida because the police have to give up the information.
Well, you guys have heard
I
of the
was-
superhero, right?
I was
Florida
in
Man?
Florida when the whole bath salts thing was happening.
Oh God.
That was
I've
pretty
heard of
scary.
Oh,
Did you
Yeah,
get
when the guy was literally eating somebody.
Eating the face.
Eating
Yeah.
the
That's
face.
right.
Yeah, that. I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
But it's not that Florida's more weird than other states. It's just that the police have to give up the information to the press. And the press always go to Florida police because it's always a good story. And I'm sure that if every other state had that same law, you would hear a lot of shit about Utah, man, says blah, blah, blah.
I feel like the weirdest thing
Utah
I hear
also
from
has really
Utah
weird
is man had alcohol.
No, there's all the polygamists.
Oh,
Very riveting stuff. I've watched like a ton of documentaries on all the different like cult sects. They're weird there, man.
Big Love is not a documentary, okay? It was a really good show, but not a documentary, unfortunately.
Oh God.
They're not nearly as sexy as Bill Paxman.
Oh God. I have a question for everybody. Like, that's not Stan. What's the most adult thing? Actually, no. Okay, or Terry, because I already know Terry's answer. I already know your answer, Terry. I'm sorry.
Why?
But everybody else here, what's the most adult thing you've done? Or the biggest adult thing that you can remember that made you think, "Whoa, shit! I'm like stepping into adulthood and stuff."
Can I go with the first thing I did?
Finish puberty.
No. First thing is when I bought my own car.
Okay. Same.
Wow, that is an adult thing.
Is there a definitive point where you finish puberty? Wasn't it just kind of like a transitionary thing where one day you're like, oh yeah, I think I'm done with that.
I'm hoping I'm not done and that boobs will come someday. Just
Roaming,
waiting on
stop.
that.
And with one statement, roaming just made the entire stream and completely riveting to the.
Suddenly, dicks everywhere just jumped up for no reason, and they don't know why.
I actually, for me, it was when I got my own my first apartment. That was
Nice.
when that was my first because I'm like shit. Now I have to. Oh, I gotta pay for heat. I gotta pay for electric. I gotta buy my own food. What the fuck is all this shit? So
food is cheap.
Here's an interesting addendum too. When I bought my first car, that's the day I also turned 80 years old because it was a Lincoln.
Oh God.
And as some of you might know, I read the newspaper too, so that doesn't help anything.
Why do you read a newspaper?
Did you guys watch the Get Off My Lawn show with Gavin McInnes?
I've watched a little bit of it here and there.
Yeah, so he'll be talking about a story and then he'll actually like pull up a newspaper and then show us the article like on the newspaper. And I'm like, ooh, retro. Like, look, guys.
Honestly, it's funny you mention that because every time I go over to my mother and stepdad's house, they still get the newspaper delivered, and I'm like, what?
I do too.
Why? You heaving a slime?
Because I don't like reading things on the interbuds.
I can understand that. I hate looking at screens all the time when it comes to reading. I need paper in front of me.
I'll bring paper problem with online articles, but when it comes to like longer books, then I would prefer to actually have it, especially if it's a book that I'm going to be like reading again and again. For textbooks, I'll go with online because it's cheaper, but if I had the choice for like actual books, longer content, hundreds of pages, paper.
And of course, for my stepfather, to be fair, every time I go visit them, he's like, so this thing happened on the computer. Okay, what did you click on break this time? So for him, it's probably also just the safer option because he literally is one of the old people that you're like, oh, old people and technology. Yeah, they shouldn't mix.
When they're scared of it?
Yeah, exactly. Look, he literally had an iPhone 5 and an iPhone 4 in the last 2 years. The iPhone 5 was sitting in a box on his kitchen table for a year, and he never turned it on. He's like, well, this one was still fine. I'm like, you had a brand new upgrade right there. Why did? And his reason was, well, because it didn't fit in my belt clip. I'm like,
you're wearing a belt clip. That is the first issue with this.
Problem.
I'm like, okay, I'm like, all right, we'll just. Sure, exactly. Well, this is, and then again, you wonder why I can only stand 2 hours at a time with these people. So, yeah.
Probably if I had to pick one thing for myself, it would probably be that I just recently bought myself a used car, and it's a Honda Odyssey, which is a minivan.
Oh my!
So I'm preparing.
That's
right through. That's not adulting. That's just like pre-dating yourself.
That's getting prepared. That's I'd count that.
That's good.
Well, I mean, it's a car. You didn't have to out yourself with it being an Odyssey. You could have just said, "I got a used car."
Right? Yeah. Willingly buying a used car because it's a good value. That is adulting. Buying a minivan is just you getting ready to be able to make dad jokes unironically.
Well, I would say, into one of the things that Romy had mentioned earlier, and I think nowadays they're probably better, but. For me, used cars kind of also fell into that kind of a thing where it's like the first couple I bought, I ended up spending so much more because of the repairs and just all the other shit that buying something new and spending a little extra in the long run ended up saving me a great deal of money. I think it's a different time now again because, back when I was buying them, it was truly what you saw, like, about the used car dealers. And if you get it from someplace at least somewhat reputable now, it's better. But, that was something where it's like, oh, well, this is cheaper. I can get it now. And then, it ends up breaking down. You end up spending so much on repairs. It's like, I could have just bought a new one and not dealt with all this shit.
I don't think I would buy a brand new car. Just because, I'm not a car person. I don't get, satisfaction out of having a shiny new car. But I think, on the newer side, right? Because it depreciates so much within like the first 2 years, and you don't really get that much wear out of it anyway.
Try when you drive it off the lot.
Yeah.
See, I used to feel that way. And then I started I went through the same thing Stan did, where I got some used cars and they were fine. And I tried the two different strategies. One, I got a really nice used car that had like all the certifications and the warranties. And
how old was it?
It was only 6 years old, and it ran fine and it did decently. And then it got flooded out in Katrina.
Damn.
So it died of no natural causes. But I did not have the cash to then because FEMA was being the bastard, and I'd already paid tuition for school. And I was like, oh, I just have no money right now. So I went and I bought the cheapest car I could. And that thing lasted me like a good 2 years. I drove that thing all the way back from Oregon to New Orleans, drove it all the way from New Orleans to San Diego when I went to law school. And then it died in San Diego in the first week. And I was like, for $3,000, that thing lasted pretty well. So I went and did the same thing again. Found the cheapest car I could, and I just rode that thing into the ground too. And then I bought a new car.
I think, to your point there, Romy, I think it depends on, because like literally the last two cars I've owned, I've had for 20 years combined. Like the one I have is literally 10 years old right now. And I've had to put some repairs in it, but overall not a lot. So if you're fine with driving the same one for for a long period of time, yeah, the new is good. But if you're like, yeah, I think I'll grow tired of this in a couple of years, then used is perfectly fine.
Yeah,
So actually, let me say here. So I'm a bit of an anomaly because I am 22 years old and I'm on my 5th and 6th vehicles.
Damn.
So,
God.
So, well, that happens when your dad is a car dealer. But anyway,
Okay.
But anyway, I have my current vehicles is interesting because they're actually the oldest vehicles I've owned, and turns out pretty good. 96 and an 04, no complaints. Whereas my Lincoln that I bought, that was a 2012.
Yeah.
Sold that after a year.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely like a quality thing going on because like the new cars I bought have been like really, really like gas sippers, basically very economy cars. They're built fleet vehicle style, so they're designed to run, and I drive them a lot. So they all made very good sense for me to not get that kind of a car used because if you buy that used, it's been run into the ground already. Instead, I'm going to be the guy running it into the ground and then selling it off to the next sap. But if you're buying like a luxury car used, like you buy a Beamer used, if it's made at 8 years and it's certified and it has a 3-year warranty from BMW, like congratulations, you got a pretty good deal on that. Like, so there's definitely a difference in like what you're buying.
So earlier this year, I used to have a sedan, but I got a Santa Fe, and it's a 2010, like it's pretty new. But what's killing me is like I remember the first time putting gas into it.
Yeah.
It's like you're pumping, like, and ordinarily I'd be done. It's like, wow, it's still going. Like, oh, look at that that meter's still going up.
So
if I gotta learn how to pump my own gas.
You've never pumped your own gas.
Never
What the
Jersey.
Okay, there's an adult
freaking Jersey.
He's from New Jersey, that piece of filth.
I hate it. I hated when I was there. I hated it. Pull into the gas station and that Indian guy who's on the phone and is not really listening to you, and he like almost puts regular in my car that requires premium, and I'm like, no.
Does it actually require premium?
It does.
It needs it.
It needs it. It wants
to Mustang Mach 1, so it requires premium. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you guys see all the images that were coming out after Oregon removed the law saying you can't pump your own gas? There's this one woman who she didn't put the nozzle into the gas.
Yes, I saw that.
Pouring it, and it's like, what are you doing?
That happened before Oregon.
Just when I think California is really shitty, I see something like that, and I'm thinking, you know what? We're not doing that. So
it's actually why
that's the bright spot.
Gas pumps, if you actually look at them, the nozzles are made to break away. Like if there's a good amount of pressure on them, because again, back to olden days, like people would literally rip the entire pump out. So now the nozzles are made to, if you put enough pressure, they'll just, the hose will just pop off.
Yeah, it's quick release.
Not destroy the entire gas station.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you look at those and it's like, them putting warnings on there about not smoking is because people will be pumping gas with lit cigarettes.
Well, actually, Mythbusters tested that, and it turns out lit cigarettes can't actually make the flashpoint of gasoline, so it just wouldn't light it.
Yeah, but they can do
the lighter will.
The lighter would, but the lit cigarette won't.
I think just from a not. I mean, I understand that, but just something I wouldn't want to take a chance on. Just having any sort of heat source.
Dan, just take a chance. Make like ABBA.
Stop.
Also for
that's a Wazz joke. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I am not, because it's awesome.
Going back a little bit, I'm going to entertain everybody here. So here's my BlackBerry with my belt clip.
Oh wow!
Oh wow! She's just so flabbergasted. Can you believe the enthusiasm on?
Look at that keyboard. Woo.
Oh,
whoa!
Ooh, fancy.
Oh, check out my new phone case.
I would prefer that. I'm not gonna lie. I would prefer the shit out of the keyboard on a phone. I hate a piece of glass.
The slider's the best. I tell you what.
Speaking of,
it's a real estate of the screen and a keyboard.
That's a nice case.
That's my design. If anyone wants to go to my T-Pub, you can get like a phone case like this.
Shilling.
Do it. Shilling. It should be in the descriptions, I think.
If anyone wants to see the beautiful thing that Mark Wazz painted for me, I can go get it too.
Go ahead.
I need to buy something of Mark's that he's made. I've been wanting to for a while now, but I've been saving.
That would be awesomely helpful for me.
I want to buy something for the set, but I don't know where to put it.
Well, if you get any ideas, just let me know. I'll be very happy to send something over.
Okay, I have a question. Does anybody here do the adult thing and like invest in something somehow?
I invested in Acorns for a while, but then I didn't have any money.
I have $90 worth of Bitcoin, so I'm not a big deal.
If you weren't already going big time with CRTV, now you're really going to be going.
That's so
time.
pretty. That's awesome. The gradient is like amazing.
Wait,
That's super hard to do.
Let me present to everyone so that they can see it.
Oh, that's the one I wanted. Shit. I remember seeing that freaking months ago, and I was like, dude, I want this. Why don't I? That is bitchin'.
It's really awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun one to work on too.
Honestly, I hate the fact that people treated Bitcoin as an investment.
Look at that. Look at that. We got the signature right here in the corner. Boom. That's going to be worth that signature right there. That's going to be worth at least like $20 someday.
Wait, we should like all buy a bunch of Mark's stuff.
We should.
And then like wait like 5 years. And then like secretly murder him so that all of the stuff appreciates.
Wow, Romy.
This is a great idea.
Right?
I'm glad Romy said it, not me, but I was thinking the same thing.
That's not how it works.
And somehow she secretly planted the idea of getting a passport in my head.
We need him to do the art, and we need him to murder a bunch of people, because then we can have the art of a serial killer. That's where we really can make out.
Stan, we can do both. If we can kill a bunch of people and then we murder him. Yeah, exactly.
We go all Dexter on him. Yep.
I don't know if we could get. I mean, Hitler levels. I'd feel kind of bad.
Oh, dude, that's someone just mentioned Ty Lopez in the comments, and I just remember. You see the Ben Shapiro video of that guy? That guy I don't trust at all. The guy that's always like, "I'm out here in my garage."
I'm out here in my garage,
What for? What did he do?
I don't know, but he's just like. I listened to his TED talk, and it was pretty much this. You can't do it on your own. You need a tutor. That was his whole talk, and I was like, okay.
This is
that's just the guy that's like, no.
Probably not inaccurate, but it's completely incomplete as advice statements go. Like, where do you find this person? Oh, and by the way, let's do a roaming statement about Bitcoin. Yeah, I also invested in Bitcoin, and I'd like to apologize to everyone losing money because literally the minute I put $200 into Coinbase, the price just started going down and hasn't stopped. I guess flatlined today.
This is what
Lex. It was you. You're the cause.
I finally put some cash in. And I'm like, okay.
No, this is what I hated about Bitcoin. It's a good idea as a concept, the idea of private currencies. I mean, for most of U.S. history, we used private competing currencies until 1913. But the bottom line is that even though we used private competing currencies before the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. So the idea of private currencies isn't a really ridiculous concept. It worked for most of U.S. history. But the bottom line is that people treated Bitcoin as an investment, and that's where I got pissed because it's not an investment; it's a currency.
Right, and like people do like trade in currencies and invest in currencies. But not to the scale, like no one essentially is using Bitcoin for transactions, right? Like of the people who own Bitcoin, I don't even know like what small fraction are actually like paying for stuff with Bitcoin or, stuff like that. They're just kind of, so many people got on the bandwagon or converting it back to cash as soon as they can to make
that's the thing. It's a transitory currency. So you use it to transfer other currencies and value from one place to another with low fees. That's the irreplaceable thing that it does really, really well. It also has a bunch of stuff that theoretically down the road could be really useful in a lot of ways, and people are experimenting with it. But I explained it to one of my friends who he does finance today, and he's like trying to figure out a simplistic way to explain it. I said, it doesn't matter if Bitcoin's $10,000 or $1 for each coin. It still does all the same stuff. And if you can't afford to go buy Bitcoin, but you need its tech, you're just going to copy the repo and make your own. Because that's way cheaper, right? If I had to spend 20 grand a month on a server rack to facilitate a private cryptocurrency for the functionality, that's still cheaper than going and buying 2 Bitcoins right now.
Hey. I work at a data center. Ain't no 20 grand a month. You're looking at maybe 15.
I'm saying, but like if you need that much computing power to literally run the entire thing yourself, so you have no distributed computing power going on, you got nobody helping you out, you need that much for like an enterprise grade cryptocurrency scheme, something like. So you need multiple locations. Like that is your worst case scenario. You're just gonna go build your own.
This is the thing about bubbles, though. Bubbles always form when you treat non-investments as investments, and that's the issue. You can't treat something that isn't an investment as an investment.
I mean, from what I saw, I just thought it was. There's
just
no
like
investment
housing
that's going to increase that wildly, that quickly, and not just blow up completely. I mean,
it's because it's not an investment at all. It's a current.
Right. Well, you know what I mean. I mean, for the value of it to go up. I mean, it was just there was no way that was going to sustain itself.
Yeah, it's just like housing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, anything like that have the. Do you have to go roaming?
No, I will. Yeah, well, yeah, but I just wanted to mention quickly that I think it was. I want to say Ron Paul tweeted out a while ago. It was a poll asking people if you could be given $10,000 worth of any material today and then have it as your retirement savings, let's say 15 years from now, which material would it be? And the options were like gold, silver, Bitcoin, and the other one might have been like real estate or something. And it was shocking to see how many people chose Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's because it's the fancy pretty thing right now.
I mean, because I just like, I mean, I have some Bitcoin, but I just wouldn't, want to bet an entire.
I don't know. I'm of the mindset I don't trust anything I can't physically hold in my hand.
Hold on. This is when Crow said something that I really have to disagree with when he said treating real estate as an investment is a bad idea. Because roaming literally just pointed out the flaw in that if you took any dollar value and said, I will give you this amount and you will retire on it later, the best thing you could grab is real estate because it's productive. You can do something with it. All the other things named, literally you're depending on market value to increase. That's the only thing you can do with it.
That's what I've been trying to think of, like how I want to start investing. And like, I think, my main priority right now is I want to buy property. Like I want to try and buy a house. That way, I'm not paying rent, I'm building equity. And, worst comes to worst, I have a place to live if I've paid off my mortgage, hopefully. So
I've already made $30,000 on my house. Woo!
Buy some land, man.
Yeah.
Hold up. That's what I was going to say. Hold up. You haven't made shit on your house until you sell it. Remember that.
I know. Well, I'm going to turn it into investment property forever anyway, so it doesn't really matter what the current value is.
Well, there you go. Then you depreciate that shit out and make sure that you have your depreciation tables proper. The IRS really reams you. It's annoying.
That was the last thing I want to touch on, though, is like getting a property, but not even just that, just the idea of moving out in general. And that's actually the most adult thing I've been doing is actually spreadsheeting and graphing like all my finances and trying to figure out what I can afford. What I don't want to stay in New Jersey forever, so I don't want to buy a house, but I'm looking at places to rent.
I wanted to ask Lex something. Why do you treat a home as an investment but not a car?
Because a car is a depreciating asset.
Yeah, your home is, if you continue to maintain it, lasts forever.
A car is not the same thing. Yeah, it's
a car is always a depreciating asset. It's not a.
Why isn't a car a depreciating asset?
Because
there is no
like
amount.
You said, it's productive.
Yeah, there's no amount of money that you can put into a car that doesn't make its economic lifespan eventually die on a long enough time scale, right? So if you have a car for 100 years, at some point you have completely replaced the value of that car. If you have a home and you put in just basic maintenance on it, you keep a roof over it and keep the siding on it functional, you will always have a structure you can live in for a marginal upkeep cost.
Yeah,
in addition to that, the land under it loses no value unless a market loses value on it.
Yeah, but the thing is that if you take a look at the 20th century, home values went up at the rate of inflation.
No.
Yes.
No. That's just flat wrong.
No. They went up only at the rate of inflation.
Fight.
I mean, so over the course of the 20th century, like that's just flat wrong. Like, and also there's a corollary thing where like inflation kind of moves with housing because housing is a major component of what we consider sustainable wages, right? So like one of those is chasing the other almost always anyways. They're going to want to try to find equilibrium. If you have to pay more for food and housing, then the cost of living is just going up and your dollars have to purchase more. So what every other economic factor is going to pin you back to trying to make those things match.
Well, how about, let me ask a simple question.
All right, first I got to take off, guys, but thanks so much for having me. It was great to
roaming
stuff.
It was fun adulting with you.
And if you guys stick around, I'll play guitar before we end.
Okay.
That sounded kind of dirty.
Yeah. As soon as I said, I was like, that was probably a bad idea, but whatever.
Wait, what? Wait, what was that a dirty? Wait,
Locust Crow.
Okay, whatever. I was curious. Anyway,
okay. Here's I'll give you just the example of my house right here. What is the rate of inflation between 1992 and 2017?
It averages about 2%.
2%. Okay, so my house was assessed by the county for taxes in 1992 at $52,000. It's now $152,000. That's not 2%.
2% annually, I said, first of all. And secondly, house prices didn't begin to go up so dramatically until about the turn of the 21st century.
No, they actually went up shortly after World War II. They went through another spike in the 1950s. They went through another spike in the 80s. They went through another spike in the early 90s, another spike in the early 2000s, then 2006, and now again in 2015, 16, I guess. I guess I'm far enough out that I can call that a spike and say that it's plateaued off now, but don't hold me to that because it still might be going. So like that's the thing.
2006, 7, 8, you had a bit major crash afterwards.
You did, but you didn't have an actual catastrophic crash. That's the other big thing. Like we had a whole bunch of REO assets, and there was a lot of frictional issues with that. But right now, we're back to values. Like if you drew a straight line from 1998 to today, and drew a straight line graph of appreciation, you would see home values are right back on that line again, right where they should have been, after you factor out everything. So we're kind of back in the same spot.
Yeah. All right. I want to ask a question. If there were no government restrictions on the construction of housing, would your property values remain high?
Doesn't Houston have 0 building codes?
They don't. They have building codes. They just don't have ridiculous zoning laws.
They have a lot of deed restrictions. So here's the thing: you would get Houston though. Houston is a system that doesn't have a ton of government involvement. Their zoning system is deed restrictions, so private people had a lot more influence on it, but you're seeing the same problem. And that's just an inherency of deeds issues. People don't want to live next door to sewage plants, and they don't want to have people obstruct their views. So this is actually the oldest common law system on Earth, the only one that has persisted through the entirety. We're talking before the end of the monarchy in the UK, all the way up to modern day America, is the resolution of permanent land rights. Everything else has been modified and updated and resolved, but we still use the same nomenclature. We still use the same deed restrictions. We still have the same language. You can do all of it in the exact same way that you could then, and we still hold it up to this day.
I've been to Houston. I've seen in single-family home neighborhoods. You can find some high rises there too. It's not perfect, but it's better than what we have in, say, New York City.
I mean, New York City was kind of a clusterfuck before they had what they had. This is the thing. The zoning system is a reaction to really bad urban planning in general that you get with sort of this mob mentality. And that's the thing. You need a solution to that. Individualism is really great for the individual, and it is really good for small collectives. It starts to become really obscene when you're trying to make everybody work together in a coherent way, because you get people do petty and irrational things on that level that ends up being really bad in the long term.
Not really. I mean, you don't need a law saying that someone shouldn't build a factory on expensive land. I mean, factories tend to be built on cheap land.
That's not true. And that's the thing. You have to make that land expensive, and you have to have environmental regulations to make certain land that you can build a factory on expensive. Like, you're just discounting a whole ton of complexity to make these simple statements that don't really hold up. Like, factories can go on expensive land just fine if they have an economic output.
They can, but people just don't tend to do that because it wouldn't make sense as an investment. You'd be digging a deeper hole.
I disagree. Here's the thing. Intel puts giant factories on really expensive land in the middle of Hillsboro. They do the same thing in Phoenix. They literally find just really expensive places compared to anything else because they're building something that's really expensive and highly technical. But it's still a factory with a lot of toxic elements that people don't want to live next door to, so they have to buy huge big plots of land and then put buffer in the base. And that's with government cooperation. That's with the government saying, no, yeah, you totally come in here and we'll give you tax credits and everything. You can do whatever you want with the land, but we have to keep everyone in the neighborhood happy.
Yeah, so basically a subsidy.
It's not a subsidy.
A tax credit is a subsidy.
No, it's just I'm not having to pay taxes. Any city in the country will give it to them too. If I come in and say I'm going to give you, if I come in and say I'm giving 500 six-figure jobs right off the bat after the end of construction, I guarantee you there's not a metro in the country that's going to say, yeah, you got to pay us our fee too.
But what's the difference? What's the effective difference really between paying someone $500 to do something versus just saying you don't have to pay $500? You could save $500 by just not having to pay your taxes. What's the effective difference in the end? I mean, you're still effectively losing tax revenue.
No, you're not, because that business isn't going to be there if you don't give them that credit. It's the economic argument of we shouldn't have corporate taxes, which I agree with. And
you can say the same thing. You can say the exact same thing about a subsidy. They wouldn't be here without the subsidy. Effectively, it's the same thing. They're getting out of paying taxes.
If everyone will give the subsidy, then it is not a loss of income to anyone. And if you would not have had that income from the tax,
it's lower revenue from what you would otherwise have in a neutral tax.
It's not.
Here's something you're not considering, Crow, is if a city gives a job creator a tax credit, they move in, they bring people to the area.
I agree with that.
You have more tax. You have more people there paying taxes than you otherwise would have. Whereas a subsidy, you have people moving in that you're paying them to be there. They're not paying taxes.
No, but what I'm saying is that there are some people who receive subsidies and pay taxes. Just take a look at any low-income worker who receives any sort of government benefit. I mean, they're paying payroll taxes, and they still get subsidies. So just because you pay taxes doesn't mean that you're not getting a subsidy. You can still get a subsidy and still pay taxes. But the bottom line is that you're getting less revenue than you otherwise would in a neutral tax system. That's
because you're assuming that the job is going to exist regardless of the tax structure, and that's the flaw in that line of thinking.
No, but what I'm saying is that you can have no taxes and then give someone a subsidy versus having a tax code and then cutting someone out with a special exemption. Effectively, it's the same thing.
It is.
You're giving someone a special advantage.
No, you're not. You're giving the same advantage to literally any company that will come in and do the same thing. It's not a special advantage. You're just saying, hey, if you create this level of economic activity in some guaranteeable way, we'll reward you by removing these dumb rules. And that's fine. Right?
What about the people who still have to live by those rules? What about them? So it is an advantage nonetheless.
It's not a special advantage. It's just, hey, it's a bulk discount, basically. If you are willing to come in and make a commitment to the area, they will adjust rules and allow you to do more things. That is a fair balance, right? Because then you don't have any people just taking independent action in their own interests. They have to come forward with a plan and say, this is what we're going to do. Are you guys willing to work with us on this? And everyone can say, yeah, that works out.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If they didn't get that special benefit, then they wouldn't be able to build there. And so they would build in cheaper land if they didn't have that benefit. That's my entire point.
No, they'd go to another venue that would give them that advantage. Like, this is the thing you're missing.
If there's no advantage at all, what I'm saying is, the only way they can afford to build an expensive land is because they're getting a special advantage.
No, if there was no taxes to them in the first place, then there wouldn't be any competitors. They put it in the most expensive land they could find, or they put it in the best place for the employees they want to get, which is what they're aiming for, right? They want an employee base that is skilled labor enough to come in and work at their plant, and that they can spend less on training for and have more reliable employment out of. That's why they choose where they are. That is their stated reason. It's logical. I believe it, right? So they would simply buy that land and do with it, and you would get no advantage out of everyone else in those rule systems, and you wouldn't have any competitive advantage to negotiate with. So, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't get rid of corporate taxes, but I'm saying it's not the worst system in the universe either.
I'm not saying it's the worst system in the universe. I mean, communism would be worse, but I'm just saying that it's not ideal.
All right, you guys ready to wrap up?
I'll do it.
Okay, fine, I guess. Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, for anyone that's interested, I'll just play a minute of guitar or whatever, just in case you're interested. Because what the heck? All right. Well, we'll probably have more extras. It's been pretty fun. All right. So see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Do it.
I think I play this out.
All right. That's an abridged version. For purposes of actually giving to the actual artist, that's Andy McKee drifting. Look it up on YouTube; it's really good.
Alrighty.
All right.
And as we said, this is we're having our pledge drive. If you would like a copy of your own Mark Wazz Takes the Show Out, please donate $5, and he will also someday eventually send you your very own guitar pin. That's $5.
And you can experience the joy of painting. God bless, my friends.
Yes. What does it mean to play us out? What? There are no words there.
Fuck it.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Ciao.
Adios.